So, this is a little bit of a voiceover. Unfortunately, the first half of this video is going to have me sound very robotic. I don't know why I'm robotic. I don't know what happened. I'm pretty sure the stuff got corrupted. So I'm a little robotic. For about the first hour of yapping, so about half the video I'm robotic. It does get fixed automatically on its own halfway through, seemingly the next day, because this was recorded over the course of 2 days. So I will probably end up doing quite a bit of voiceovering for the first half so that you don't have to. I mean, the robotic sound isn't that bad, mind you, but I will end up likely skipping a lot of what I originally wanted to have in it, or just quite literally recording it, recording it in post. Hello. I am a person somewhere, probably. I like things. Here are some things I like, but that's not really important. What's important is I like to yap. Yes, I love to yap. Uh, you see this? This is the part that matters. I love to yap. And because I love yapping, and I have all these things to yap about, I'm going to yap about one of them. And that is ponies. Because I like ponies. And out of all the things on the list, ponies are the easiest to yap about. So, hello again. My name is 2K. I guess 2K Art is the name I adapted due to 2K being a popular signature, surprisingly. I've come across quite a few in my endeavors, and because it's only one letter and one number, it's usually too short to be considered a name in online circles and social medias. You write it like this. That's my signature. If you ever see it, that's my art, and that's cool, and that's me. So I've existed online, basically not at all. I've had a couple social medias here and there, like Instagram with a following of 4, my mom, my sister, myself, and my other art account, or alt account, and not even my dad. So yeah, just really those closest to me. I have exposed myself here and there with art, with an art post or two, but my most common presence is on Discord, and it's not like I'm particularly in many servers or the like, so I assume basically nobody knows me and my art. So, like I said earlier, I may as well don't exist. So hopefully that was the introduction chapter, and now this is the what my channel is gonna be chapter or something. I don't particularly know what age group will watch my videos, since I want them to be mostly about My Little Pony. I don't really have any communities, therefore I'm not particularly loyal to any fandoms. I think that most of my videos will be about My Little Pony, at least hopefully, and I assume maybe once in a blue moon you may find a post about something else as well, but overall I just don't really have any communities, so I will literally do whatever I want. I'm the type of person to start a project and then finish it 2 years later, so you never really know with me, but regardless of what I am yapping about, I always try to have some sort of art related to it. I want to be an animator, and I think that a YouTube channel like this will help me keep my pen on the paper and motivate me to further learn about animation and self-study and staying motivated even after work days to continue pushing myself for my future. So I guess now I can say, why am I drawing ponies? Isn't there enough pony YouTubers like whom draw ponies? Why me? Why now? Well, basically, I have a lot of AU ideas, and I like to think of them and share them. But I never really have anywhere to do that, and I never really draw them because I'm not going to be sharing them. So for this video, I'm starting off with a general topic, which is what this video is going to be expanding on, and that is what I imagine Gen 5 to be. A lot of things about Gen 5 really annoyed me and really set me off in the wrong way, and others I thought were okay, but I certainly had a preconceived notion about what Generation 5 was supposed to be. The things about Generation 5 annoyed me, and I thought others were okay, but I certainly had a preconceived notion. The thing about Generation 4 is every season is amazing. The scripting and the story was practically built for the ponies. The ponies weren't built for the world was built for the ponies. And Generation 5, the ponies were built for the world, to tell a story in that world. And because I wish to become an animator, it's really important to me to understand why that scripting and whatnot was so good. So that's where I come in. I'm not trying to yap as much as I draw them, but I'm sure I absolutely will. But yeah, so let's get something started then. Don't worry, I know I didn't save that. So look how seamless that transition was. Now we got a new blank canvas, so clean. Yeah, I'm just amusing myself at this point. So, two things before I put pen on paper. One, I have plenty of ideas for AUs of ponies, but there's a theme that every pony YouTuber that has ever done YouTube does, and that's basically my version of Gen 5. I don't think I've ever seen a pony YouTuber who doesn't have their version of G5, because I think all of us can agree that Generation 5 sucks. Okay, well, I shouldn't say it sucks, but in comparison to Generation 4, it sucks. By itself, it's not exactly bad. My problem with Generation 4 versus 5 is the fact that the story can be told by anything. The story doesn't exist within its universe. It's an allegory for racism. The story itself isn't bad per se, but it's not exclusive to the world of My Little Pony. It's something you can watch anywhere. You can have a triangle of anything: the healer, uh, a warrior, and an archer. It's something that games use all the time. It's called the Holy Trinity. Sure, you've heard of it if you play games. If you don't, then essentially, it's a trinity that's very difficult to be broken because the tank or the warrior, the ranger, and the healer uh, all kind of coexist in this form of kind of like rock paper scissors. It's nearly impossible to break each other. Um, and G5 kind of matches this. Sorry, not G5. G4 kind of matches this idea uh, in My Little Pony. You got unicorns that there's the unicorns, the Pegasi, and the Earth ponies. These are hooves, or I guess two of them. Yep. The story is basically the origin story of Equestria. It can be told anywhere though. Um, it's just not a unique. It's not a unique trinity to the story, at least. So instead of a unicorn, it could be a fairy. Instead of a Pegasi, it could be a dragon, I guess. I really need to work on my dragon doodles. I don't really know how to draw them. And then instead of earth ponies, you have I don't know, a buffalo. Um, uh, my point being, this trinity isn't this story isn't really unique to just My Little Pony. The fairies don't like the dragons and the buffaloes, and they all need to be united. You can do it with gender, or you could do it with race if you did it in real life. You could do what type of clothing somebody wears. It's point being, it's not a unique trinity. You can make this story happen with anything that has some sort of discontinuation of problems. Generation 4 has a unique story. Not because it's unique to the story, but because every story is unique to the universe. Um, and that's, you know, for example, hopefully right about now you'll see me pull up the first frame of Generation 4 outside of the credits. It should have a bit of a titleless screen, and you kind of see a pony drawn in a doodle-esque form, and it kind of exists inside of a book. That pony, I'm pretty sure, is Celestia, or it might be the two sisters together, actually, like in the yin and yang uh, pattern. But either way, Twilight is at this point explaining the story of the two sisters, um, and that first frame already puts you into the universe. You're exploring the universe as Twilight is exploring the universe. You don't know that yet, but it's there. Um, the first actual frame outside of this book is, I'm pretty sure, Twilight just like laying down, reading the book, um, and you're immediately once again reintroduced to what this universe is. You are learning about the universe as Twilight learns about the universe, and the first frame is just Twilight realizing her whole world is about to change. Not only does the story drive it home with Celestia sending her to Ponyvale, um, but also the storytelling of Nightmare Moon coming back. It moved the plot along in two unique storytelling ways. Not only is the character herself realizing that times are changing, but the characters within the story are encouraging and forcing change to happen upon the main character. She's thrown into Ponyvale by, you know, Celestia encouraging her to, um, and thus you get to learn about the world as much as she does. G5 tries to mimic the same setting with one pony trying to meet the others and uniting. It seems like a poor allegory of the main six meeting. Also has the triangle. It's between you, the character, the uh, and the character's relationship between each other. Unlike G5, which is about races, it's not a story that hasn't been said in the world before. Obviously, the story of the character who found something out along about the world is forced to change has happened before because it's a trope. But when you try to replace Twilight with a different story, it doesn't work the same. Let's say Twilight was a fairy. Now, the fairy is learning that the girl in the moon is coming back to wreak havoc, so you have a fairy in the moon. So I guess all the characters in the army of fairies are in the moon, right? So it's like the fairies of are the craters or something. I don't know. In My Little Pony, the moon literally shapes Nightmare Moon's face in the moon. The imagery of the pony is in the moon. It's a very strong form of visual storytelling. So it so if it was to be fairies, the pony in the moon would also have to be fairies. The fairy in the moon. Um, Twilight Twilight as a fairy, she needs to go to her mentor fairy, and this is where the first problem arises. The mentor fairy is very likely going to be practically indistinguishable. This is a big simplification, of course, but for example, if you watch Tinkerbell, the Queen Fairy is this very gorgeous lady with a very long pixie dust dress, and she has these big, beautiful butterfly-like wings. She is clearly very beautiful and much wiser than the rest. Then you have Tinkerbell, who's your normal tinkerer pixie, right? And that's great. But notice how outside of the wings shape, they're the same. The storytelling in these characters is in their age, their height, and their clothes, and most importantly, the shape of their wings. If you try to tell the first episode of My Little Pony in this world, the difference is magic, flight, and raw strength. But with fairies, unless if you combine them with another species or think of them in a really unique way, even within the fairy world, you have water and flower growth and tinkering, and I'm pretty sure there's like 40 of them in the opening scene when we see Tinkerbell's birth. She's surrounded by like 40 different categories, and she falls into tinkering, which makes her upset. In My Little Pony, you're born one of three species, which is similar to Tinkerbell since they don't get to choose, but the Trinity in My Little Pony is only three species, and the fairy have too many options. And the fairies, all fairies have the ability to fly. It's unclear if the queen also has the magic that allows her to use all the other fairies' powers, like snow and flowers to grow. But for, let's say, in this cross universe example, let's say she does. Then you got Tinkerbell, who is the equivalent to an earth pony. The reason I say that is she doesn't really use magic to make things. She can't make the flowers grow or talk to animals, and I'm pretty sure all the fairies use pixie dust for all of that anyways. So, like, they use the pixie dust to make the water float and the flowers grow, and even to get the animals to do what they want them to do. But regardless, Tinkerbell's an earth pony in this example, even though she can fly. But all fairies can fly, so what do you replace flight with? In the Trinity of My Little Pony, what do you replace flight with? And even if she isn't good at it, she still uses pixie just like everybody else does to do things in the world. So where is the unicorn's unique magic? Where is the Trinity? Do you see what I'm trying to get at? You can't put the first episode of My Little Pony, the world building, into many other places because that is the story. That's the story that is made for the world of My Little Pony. Because of this, you end up in this situation where when you watch G4 and you watch Twilight become this better pony, you are watching the world that was created for her, not the result of wanting to draw ponies. I mean, you are. Just look at, FIM and My Little Pony history, but G4 was created for the species and the pony. When Laura Frost created the story, she created it for this pony, for this species, and that's a really huge distinction compared to Generation 5, which already had a story. They took a story they already had and tried to reimagine it, which is great. We love to reimagine stories sometimes, but it's not quite the same. The created ponies for a world that was made for Twilight and her friends. They lacked the same universe. Sunny's story can be told in any universe. The story of racism, religion, or uniting can be told in any universe. The characters were made to fill the story, not build the world. So G5 did its best to take a world that they already had and tell a story that felt familiar, so no one hated it. But everyone ended up hating it anyways, because, it ultimately ended up backfiring because it lacked the care to explain who these ponies were to the world. And yeah, I'm not saying that the ponies lack depth. Sunny has this awesome backstory about her grandpa, and what he meant to her, and finding and uniting the other ponies. That story really drove her character, but the world wasn't made for Sunny. She's just a character in the world. She was created for the world of Generation 4 as if it was a continuation, but Generation 4 wasn't based off Generation 3. Generation 4 was created for Twilight and her friends. So trying to create a continuation off a story that was never meant to have one, in a way, like, it just doesn't really work like they wanted it to. Like I said, G4 wasn't really based off Generation 3's story. In a way, they were created off of them, but they didn't carry the story of Generation 3. And because of this, Generation 4 felt original. And in some ways, it feels like the first generation to a lot of people, despite the long-term fans loving it for the last four generations. Like, for example, Generation 2 and 3 were popular with my mom, but it's not like it left the same cultural impact on her as it did and impact on her in most of her generation compared to Generation 4 with ours. Like, my mom would see, the last two generations of My Little Pony, and she would think, oh yeah, they're cute, they're fun, but it's not like it's just not the same. Even Generation 4, she absolutely loves. There's nostalgia to the previous generations, but um, she recognizes that Generation 4 is its own thing. Even when she watches Generation 4, which she doesn't really do, because of the fact that it's not the same to her. It doesn't even feel like My Little Pony. It's not what she's used to, which just goes to show how contrasting it absolutely is. If you watch Generation 5, you are thinking about Generation 4. In fact, they're assuming you have some context on Generation 4 with the presence of Twilight and, the explaining the elements and even the racism between the three species. You're expected to understand where these ideas come from, and it comes from the previous generation. So circling back, at this point I'm going to play the original audio um, of this part of the video because of the context that it holds. Um, so, sorry for the robot voice. G5, I saw somewhere, hopefully again you'll be seeing a photo on your screen, just in case I'm going to do a doodle like I did with the last one. I saw this photo of like it's from it's from I'm pretty sure it's from the original comics, but let's just say it's Discord, and he's sulking because he is like missing Fluttershy. It's a G5 panel, and there's like Fluttershy as a ghost, like right here, that's kind of like flying near him as a ghost, I guess. Trying to like comfort him, I guess. Um, and I always see it because people mention it when they talk about uh, like who got the worst fate in G5. Because let's be honest, he did. Like Discord losing his it's like, what do you call it in Lord of the Rings, Aragon with oh, I forgot her name. Um, yeah, I don't remember. But it's like with her and him, where one of them's immortal and the other one just isn't. But this thing is drawn in his cave, I guess. And I can't tell if it's like a fan art of it drawn in the comics style, because it's like the G5 comic style. And so I don't really know if somebody like drew it in the comic style, or if it's genuinely just a canon like thumbnail of the comics. Because I know you meet Discord really early in the series, and he's like a depresso in the cave. But I just can't say I've involved myself too much with the G5 things, so yeah. But needless to say, this is what started this. This is what triggered me to create this YouTube video, to create this everything, to go down this loophole. This is the one that caused it. The reason being because I was thinking about this, and I was thinking about my own version of what FIM Gen 5 would have been for me. I wanted the Gen 5 to be all about this, what the Student 6 were supposed to be, you know? Um, and so that's kind of where my continuation starts. My continuation unironically starts with Fluttershy and Discord, because I think with his element of chaos, I think Discord is the type of person type of Jaquanicus, to have the chaos magic to kind of create a version of Fluttershy that exists within his own mind, a spiritual form. You know, we've seen the spirit of the tree, so we know spirits are something possible to exist. They never really touch on ghosts or anything like that, but it's not something that is ever said is impossible. And with Discord's magic being what it is, um, I think he could, in a sense, create how do I even say that? A ghost-like form of Fluttershy, um, which is what I mentioned earlier with that panel in the series. This panel right here, because instead of him being sad and crying about it, I think that it would have posed a lot of a different tone. I think, and this is where the AU speculation stuff starts. I think that he would have a very kind of similar actually to this pose right here, just reversed actually. Um, he is kind of an S, isn't he? We'll do the same pose, I guess. Is that his flow? And then it goes down like this in his tail. Um, I think he would have a chaotic form of himself and Fluttershy, to which she would be almost like a kindness counselor. Like I feel like he would embody the element of kindness through, especially her you know, timely um, passing. Um, he his magic is quite literally nothing but chaos, so I don't see why that wouldn't be impossible for him. Um, he kind of reflected her life as a pony. Um, and even if we never became, you know, even if we never really know if she became a part of like a ghost, or if she genuinely is just his illusion, um, I think that that scene would be a lot different. Because when you are the element of chaos, chaos being depressed man in cave doesn't just seem totally correct to me. Um, Instead, I think chaos would either become crazy man in cave or happy man in cave, because he has the magic and the ability to do pretty much whatever the heck he wants. You know, he's kind of the ultimatum of the show. Like the fact that he has to become the villain in order to be overpowered, because he is probably one of, if not the strongest characters in the show. Like, unironically, he's just, that's what happens when you give chaos a physical form. Um, so I today, I know it's already been 42 minutes of me yapping. Hopefully, at least half of that gets cut out. Actually, it probably won't suffer. Hopefully, about 15 minutes of that gets cut out. I want to draw basically that panel, um, but in my version of it, and I want to, whilst I'm drawing, explain a little bit of my idea of what Gen 5 was supposed to look like, and kind of go into this appreciation of I guess appreciation isn't the right word, but go into this storytelling of what I imagine G5 to look like, and what I would have liked to seen without just making everybody alicorns, because I think personally, kind of side with my younger self here. I think that would have been the coolest and bestest ending. But still, just from a storytelling perspective, I understand why that's not the best idea. Um, or even if they did, like, I still wouldn't complain. I can still think of ways to make her a ghost-like version, because, yeah, but of an alicorn, but I'm not going to. So, I am going to go take myself a pause. So hopefully you will see me once I get the draft of this drawn, and then I will be back to yap more, and I will speed this part up for the viewer here, because I think this is kind of under the speed paint category. So I guess it's only natural for me to um, excuse me. Oh boy, excuse me. It's only natural for me to not talk so much while I'm trying to draw, because as you can tell, I am not good at talking and drawing, and I think most people who do speed paints do voiceovers anyways. So maybe I separate the audio and do it separately, but probably not. So yes, I'm going to go take a break, and as far as you're concerned, the video is just going to enter officially the speed paint. Okay, so at this point, um, it's probably only been, 5 seconds for you, but for me, it's actually been a couple hours. I had a nice dinner, and now I am mid-sketch. As you can see, I finished Fluttershy here. Well, quote-unquote finished. I want to point out that in this little advent of mine, I don't want to make it look polished. I know that's unusual, why do you want to post unfinished artwork on purpose, it'll be finished, it'll be, but I want it to be more of I want it to resemble the comic style more than the show style, mainly due to the fact that the comic style I feel like is more authentic. I really love looking at it, and considering I want to be an animator and illustrator, I want to be able to adapt that style. I'm such a perfectionist, I have a really hard time leaving details. Like, I mean, look at me right now, I'm adding all these tiny, like, like, what am I doing right now? I don't need to be really doing this, but I'm doing it since I'm talking, so I think it's okay. But when you do animations, there's only really one person who touches up the drawing, there's that one, well, it's not one person, it's a team of like 300 people, it's the biggest part of the team, but it's the, people who do, who finish everything. The people who basically do the details of everything. I don't really know which category I will go into. I'm not sure. Probably do whatever the heck is hiring when I get that far. Obviously, I need to build up my skills, and that'll be a couple-year adventure, so don't worry, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. I say that as if I've been doing YouTube my whole life, but when it comes down to working my skills specifically, I just want to make sure that I keep it in this sketchy format, so that I can not only replicate it better, easier later, but just so that for myself I can learn to not be so much of a perfectionist, because that's going to be my biggest flaw with my portfolio and trying to be an animator once I'm actually in that scene. All that aside, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I had in mind drawing this. So, obviously, quite a few touch-ups are yet to be done here, but I was thinking, so part of, like, the story, because I keep talking as if you've waited for hours to talk with me, but I have to remember it was only a couple seconds for you guys. But for this whole story, what I got going on is, as I mentioned, I kind of want to go down the path of like Discord is this like he's powerful enough, just canonically to be able to truly manipulate the world around him, obviously, in a way that such chaotic magic could very likely help him create a form of Fluttershy that exists past her death. I tried to take like her old tale, when she's in like the time skip. I tried to kind of mix her hair up a little bit, but I think her iconic heart bangs are just so adorable, and they make her look a lot more youthful. And I feel like if she's going to be a ghost forever, she's not really going to be an old ghost, you know? Um, Maybe it has some implications that she died early, but I don't think it would really matter considering, well, just look at her, right? Um, you can still communicate with her in that sense. Oops, I actually have not saved this file yet. I should do that really quick. Always save your file. I did not do this. Just name this that. Um, so that just stands for speed paint. Um, so when it comes down to at this point, I want to draw his horns a little bit while I talk more. But I kind of envision him as like, based off what I've read, the little I've read and heard in Gen 5, he's kind of like this old man who exists in a cave. He kind of retreated because the grief of Fluttershy's death was just so immense that he couldn't really do anything else except grieve, and that caused him to be, locked up in this cave. I like the idea of him actually retreating to a cave um, after the events of uh, G4, because of the fact that he, like, if there's another generation, there's new conflicts. And I think after Fluttershy and especially the main six have passed, I feel like he won't have that much of a place in society anymore. I think, like, due to the species he is, he's not really gonna make too many more friends. I mean, he barely makes friends as it is. It's not like he ever really made friends with the main six, the student six. It's not like he really puts himself out there, and you have to be the kind, the element of kindness to truly be his friend, because of the fact that he's just so chaotic. That, or you're somebody like Pinkie, but even then, Pinkie has her own. Even though they're friends, you never really see them in the series interact with each other on that level. You don't ever have a Pinkie Pie and Discord episode, right? I mean, I guess you kind of do in the comics. I haven't really read them all too much, but you could say that they get some time together, but that's when all of them go to Discord's realm, not just Pinkie Pie. And the only reason I say Pinkie Pie is just because she's already so chaotic as it is. So, chaos and whatever, whatever the heck Pinkie Pie has going on just would match his vibes really well. But point being, not too many characters I think can truly tolerate Discord. He's mean, he's jealous, even as a reformed character, he's a symbol of disharmony. I mean, his name is literally Discord. He is the element of chaos. He is the opposite of harmony. So you can't really expect him to do that, right? To get along with ponies, and which at this point I assume I probably really worship the elements of harmony, right? Like, because of Twilight being the element of friendship and magic, she's turned into this princess, and now everybody knows of her. It's not like she's just, Celestia's student. It's like she's the queen, she's the girl, she's the one. She is the princess now. So because of that, I think there would be a bit of a cult-like following to the elements. I feel like a lot of ponies, similar to real life, when we have um, these tropes, I feel like people would see themselves in those tropes. So it's like people would organize themselves, or ponies would organize themselves as, I match the element of harmony, and this friend group, like there'd be a lot of friend groups that are like trying to organize themselves, and maybe even conflict emerges because somebody's, they have two elements in the same group, or like they're going to want to be the next main six. I think there's be a lot of people like that, because even though it's never really shown anybody tries to be the princess, like Celestia or Luna, nobody's really trying to be the princess. It's a bit offensive, I assume. I mean, like, you never really see anybody dressed up as Celestia, right? Especially kids. You'd think, as a kid, if you had a queen, that, I mean, you'd want to be the queen, right? So, who knows? Maybe it's just a bit different for the ponies. But we're just gonna go with what we have. I think his head is way too big, so let's just make him a little bit smaller there. Oh yeah, so welcome to my video, welcome to my YouTube channel where I can't keep a straight thought. um, yeah, so either way, I like the idea of them retreating to a cave. Yes, that's what I was saying, because there's not going to be many people who get along with him, and he's probably not going to care so much about the world. Like, I mean, he doesn't ever really care so much about the world. Like, he cares about his friends. He doesn't really care about the world. And he's would probably step up to join to help if necessary. Like, Discord would be a very important character in the next generation, simply due to the fact that he is so timeless. I don't like the idea of him aging. I don't really know anything about Draconic or the sorts, so I can't really say if they're supposed to age or if they just did that for like a thematic thing, or if they age really slowly. But I'm going to do my own little headcanon because it's you know my version of the story that we're making. Um, and I'm going to say that he is immortal. He can only, like, the reason Celestia put him in stone is because of the fact that, he is immortal. As long as chaos exists in the world, Discord does. And I don't think that's really something that can age. Chaos is there, it's just a constant. Like the elements of harmony being a constant, they're just always going to be there. And he's one of those things. He's always going to be there. And I think with his experience and understanding of the world, he would probably help the next generation find their place, and help find each other. Like, he would, like, this next generation of the main six, or friends or groups or whatever, would possibly come to him to help them find the other elements, because he's so chaotic and kind of like a god. Like, unironically, he's always kind of portrayed as very godlike, which I also appreciate. I think Discord is one of the most fun characters in the show. He's um, he's always got this thing about him. Um, he's always there to be problematic, you know? Like, he's just one of those characters that I feel like you can always rely on to shake things up. He's one of those. He's kind of what is it called when a character is um it's like a plot armor character. I don't know the name of that specifically off the top of my head, but one of those characters that are just like get out of jail free card. And Discord is absolutely that. He goes wherever he wants, he does whatever he wants, he helps whoever he wants, but let's see here, his eyebrow is just not working out with me. Maybe if I just split it into two, maybe. So yeah, I really like Discord, and so I think even in a new generation, he would be somebody that people would ask for help. Mainly next, the next main characters. Speaking of which, obviously I'm not drawing them quite yet, but outside of just our lovely Discord fella and Fluttershy, I also want to draw the others, what they would become, because I'm kind of a sucker for shows that end in death. I always hate the idea of permanently killing off a character. Um, if you think that's stupid, I would just like to remind you that there have only been 2 characters to permanently die in One Piece as far as I'm aware. Uh, Everybody else who dies is either in a flashback or just doesn't. It's entirely possible to write a story without permadeath. I think death in a story should be extremely symbolic, and it's if you're going to continue a story, killing off everybody isn't the best way to do that. So when it comes down to following in a new generation, if it like, I don't have a problem with it at the end of FIM. At the end of Friendship is Magic, there's an implication that, you know, they all die of old age and Twilight continues to be the princess for a very long time. I don't have a problem with that ending because I think it just fits. But even with that ending, if there was a continuation, I think this sort of interaction between Discord and Fluttershy would stay very real. I think, again, even if it's only in the Discord dimension, even if it's only in an alternative dimension, I think Discord is way too emotionally attached to just let Fluttershy not live. And I think Fluttershy is kind enough to allow him to basically perform necromancy in a spiritual way. So, you know, it's ethical. um, that aside, yeah, I don't like the idea of permanently killing off a character if there's a continuation. If FIM was the end, you know, happy ever after, which is what it technically is, then I think it's no problem, you know. They all die of old age, that's awesome. But because of the fact that I'm trying to go this route of a continuation and the next generation, the way I assumed it would happen, I'm assuming that they're going to be brought up again somehow because of the fact that the world basically revolves around them. I mean, like, yeah, you have the pillars, but I mean, I'm not even going to go into the whole thing about Star Swirl the Bearded and his whole thing about, you know, being the element of sorcery when he doesn't even know friendship, and the whole thing. I mean, the name is literally called Friendship is Magic, so that doesn't really make much sense, does it? his element is sorcery, which is the element of magic. But then you like his friend is kind of the one who was supposed to be that. Like I really don't think he was supposed to live that role, but he did, and because of that, the entire world is based off of Twilight Sparkle, um, which is cool. I like that. So if there's a continuation, as in their children or like whatever, then I think the world would still be heavily reliant on them. I think they would kind of become immortalized in one way or another, either through generational blood, like maybe with Applejack, her family might, you know, the apples in general might just be constantly looked towards for advice. They might have their own sort of uh, what do you call it? Like community or town or even city based off of them. Um, I don't think it's just like, yeah, she would just be remembered and idolized in some sort of way. And I can't say exactly what that way is, but I think when it comes down to Fluttershy, like, I don't know, like, like, Applejack is probably also the hardest example because of the fact that she is doesn't really have any ties to quote-unquote immortality, unlike the others. And I think part of that is due to the fact that Applejack's character is really unwritten. Um, when, you know, because of the fact that they thought of her as the element of honesty, she doesn't really get it doesn't really get expanded outside of that. Like, it's just the fact that she's the element of honesty, you know, like, that's who she is. She's the element of honesty, and because of that, it results in this. Oh, I totally forgot how Fluttershy's cutie mark is aligned. She's doesn't necessarily have any friends that are so close, you know? Like, even for Rainbow Dash, I can imagine ways that she's as a Wonderbolt. Like, she's literally a Wonderbolt by the end of the show. She's going to have an entire monument and probably shrine dedicated to her because of the fact that she's famous, practically. And you have Fluttershy with Discord, and you have, there's one on top, okay. There's one high, there's two low. And you also have Rarity with her boutiques, so it only makes sense that there would be... Uh-oh. Oh, of course. There would be, like a clothing line that is quite literally modeled after her, and she's going to be immortalized through her boutique, that's just no doubt. And who else? Who's next? Then you have... oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm calling a blank. It's just because I'm trying to get this cutie mark correct, or at least twice close enough. Rarity, Applejack, Twilight, obviously, the princess, Fluttershy, Rainbow Dash, and... who the heck am I missing? How did I forget? Wait, did I name them all? Rarity, Twilight, Fluttershy, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, and... Oh my god, this is so embarrassing. This is so embarrassing. Call it stage fright. um, oh, Pinkie Pie. Oh my god. Of course it's Pinkie Pie. Uh, oh, that's so embarrassing. I forgot about freaking Pinkie Pie. Um, the one, yeah, yeah. If you subscribed up into this point and then decided to unsubscribe it, I totally, totally get it. But jokes aside, um, Pinkie Pie, she's, I mean, she's practically chaos in a pony form, you know? Like, she's gonna have, she'll just live. Like, Pinkie Pie just, Pinkie Pie will just live. she's just, she's just she'll show up into your dreams or something. Like she's gonna be the new Luna, you know. Even though it's said that Rainbow Dash takes over that because she's really good at combating nightmares, it's gonna be Pinkie. You know, she has the optimism. She's the element of laughter. And when you have a bad dream, I mean, in the pilot, that's what she does. You know, you're experiencing this scary forest, and she comes by and har har har. You know. Either way, um, I think in this universe that I'm slowly creating, I feel like, I mean, like, what conflict do you have for the new generation? You know, there's two aspects of it that I want to keep consistent. I want the main six to not be fully killed off. I want them to be accessible some way, whether it's astral or dream wise. I want them to exist on other planes of existence, so that they can be referenced or communicated with, but obviously they're hands off enough where you can't just, you know, they can't solve the problems for you. Like Fluttershy as a ghost is a perfect example. She's a ghost. She can't presently be there, but if you go to this little cave where she and her uncanon boyfriend are, then you can speak with them and get wisdom and advice, and maybe if you're lucky, Discord can, you know, pull a string for you or two, but overall, they're just reserved and you're a visitor. Kind of like a Zecora treatment, right? Where she just kind of exists on her own and she's there to help you if you absolutely need it, and there's not really much else going for you. Um, they can't fix the problems for you, they can just help you, advise you for your problems, and I think that would be really sweet. Just they're kind of like cameos at that point, right? Like, hey, remember these guys that are like generations before you? What color eyes is Fluttershy? Green? They're more of a teal, but go with that. Um, so, as I was saying, um, for the other characters, I'm not sure exactly how I want to do that yet. All I know is that they want to be present, but how? Not quite sure. Like for Twilight, she's an alicorn, um, but at this point, I want her to be retired. Kind of like similar to her mentors. So like a very, very long time in the future. Like so many generations have passed. I mean, kind of in between. Like what I feel like would happen. Like something I also want. I know I'm kind of messing up my words here and being a little confusing, backtracking and trailing a little bit, but something I also want is that Starlight Glimmer becomes an alicorn. She has so much magic. She's probably the most powerful unicorn in the entire show thus far. Um, eh, Outside of G4, of course. Um, she's insanely powerful, and it goes like it goes to show. Like she goes literally head to head with Twilight Sparkle, and even at times helps Twilight. And that's absolutely insane to think about. This unicorn is so powerful with her magic that she literally helps Twilight and Celestia um, and Luna as with their spell in the kingdom, in the Crystal Kingdom. Um, she's the one who helps them. Like, it's not the the fact that they needed her to help. There, you got three Alicorn magics. Remember how strong Twilight was when she had all the Alicorn magic. She went up against Tyrek in this insane battle, and you're telling me that Starlight Glimmer as a unicorn can just do that? She can just be on par. She has the physical ability to banish discord from the school. Like she alters Star Swirl's spells. She creates her own spells on a whim. She's insanely inclined in magic, and even if she's not an element of harmony, I feel like she would be some sort of something I heard another YouTuber say was she's kind of like this awkward seventh element, kind of like an assistant in some ways, and I like that. I like the idea of there being a seven element, and because Star Swirl the Bearded is the one who created the elements of harmony, he was too egoistic to recognize the fact that he is the seventh element and not the main element. You know, he isn't the element, like, yeah, he might be the element of sorcery, but he's not the element of friendship. Um, and that's kind of where Starlight also kind of fills in, you know? Like, if you want to call Twilight the element of magic, that's great, but that's only because of the element of friendship. Her magic is friendship. Without her friendship, she's not nearly as powerful as Starlight in her studies. You know, the reason Twilight is, like, if you put season 3 before she became an Alicorn up against Starlight, she would not, like, be comparable. She would just straight up lose. It's a totally different level, and there's other unicorns that are much stronger than her in general as well. So it's totally, it's not magic that makes Twilight stand out. It's her friendship, and it's the friendship that the magic of which that friendship holds that makes her stand out, and that's a really really big difference. So when it comes down um, to Starlight, I think she would fill in a really good as the next princess. You know, at the time I didn't really, when I was younger, I didn't really know Starlight because I hadn't watched that far and things were still being released. The show was still airing. Um, so at the time, I didn't really think about anybody other than the main six being alicorns. Um, but after I did see Starlight, it just felt like they were setting her up to be the next ruler of Equestria, and I mean the writers purposely made her um, mimic, not mimic, but mirror Twilight Sparkle. Like that was a intentional design about how she became reformed in the first place. Um, and I feel like if she had like this, if the elements of harmony were missing some sort of element I would say it would be like the element of redemption or something along those lines. Um, because not only did Star Swirl get redeemed, sort of, he was still a jerk even after, but just say he got redeemed. Um, there's pretty much every single villain in the show does, which also leads me down my next path of yapping. Cozy Glow. Cozy Glow is somebody I didn't even really know existed until I finished watching the show, um, and that was and she's part of the reason I continued watching the show and I decided to finally finish it is because I thought I saw a thumbnail with Cozy Glow in it as an alicorn, and I was very confused on who this new alicorn was and where she came from. So I realized I just had to I just had to catch up to date. Um, but outside of that fact alone, she's by the end of it, she actually gets um, stoned, and she's just a child, and she gets stoned. She's not really painted as a redeemable character. Don't get me wrong. I don't necessarily think she would be the best redeemed character, but similar to how after a millennia, Discord also, or I guess centuries, somewhere before um, Luna became Nightmare Moon, Discord was stoned by the two sisters, and that was after the elements of harmony were grown and founded as well. So somewhere in that timeline, um, you have this these sisters stone him, and then he escapes. So I'm going to assume maybe like because of the fact that because Nightmare Moon was 100 years ago. I'm pretty sure by the date she spent literally 100 years on the moon. I'm going to assume that Discord maybe spent 500 years, like just to call it easy numbers. I'm sure there's a timeline out there um, to his return. And didn't he return because people were like acting chaotically? Like his return was inevitable, and um, even if they did it again, he would have just came back eventually anyways because of the fact that he is Discord. Um, so maybe the same doesn't necessarily apply to the other villains, but I like to think that Flurry Heart, because we never really get to do anything with Flurry Heart, would maybe need help from Cozy Glow because of the fact that she's so smart. Like she's so smart, and maybe she would try to help save her. I don't really know enough about the Crystal Empire's lore, and Princess uh oh, what was Princess Mia? It's not Cadenza because that's just Candace. Uh, Princess Cadence. But the other one that Cadence is rebirthed from. Um, I don't really know enough about her to know if she's like the redemption type. But I think it would be pretty cool to see Cozy Glow in the future have some sort of redemption arc. Maybe not the others. Chrysalis had her opportunity. Chrysalis could have been redeemed. Um, but she, even when asked to, she's the one who turned away. So I don't think Chrysalis can be redeemed. Not due to the fact that she can't be, but mostly due to the fact that she doesn't want to be. There's really big, importance in that. Um, Tirek he is kind of living in that same situation where he doesn't want to be redeemed. He's a different species. He comes from a community of really old, um, existent species, and where he comes from, the times he comes from is just really different. So I think if you talk about him being redeemed, it just doesn't really work out as well. But at least wise when it comes down to Cozy Glow's still a kid. She still has the opportunity to be redeemed, right? Like every kid needs an opportunity, and she is a child. Um, so I think that sets her up for opportunity. It means that she's allowed to have that opportunity, unlike the other two, in which have ruined their own opportunities repetitively. Cozy Glow is somebody who had the opportunity to. She hasn't had the opportunity to be reformed yet. And I think I forget her exact motivation, other than just control and power. Um, I forget her exact motivation because, like, I know she wants to harvest friendship magic to become stronger because she doesn't believe that the main six are using it correctly, but I don't remember exactly. Like, I don't think she ever really had a backstory, so it would be really cool to think about, why she cares so much about control and power, and where she's coming from, to empathize with her a bit more. Um, Discord has a lot of colors, like an insanely lot of colors, insane amount. Um, but yeah, I think that would be pretty fun thing to explore. And I'm on the wrong layer again. Um, so with the next generation, that entire rant is about the same thing. The next generation, if the next generation is, you know, uh, quite literally directly related to the current generation, I think Cozy Glow might become like the next reformed character, kind of similar to, um, very similar to Starlight. I think it would be Starlight's predecessor in that sense. At that point, Cadence would be old enough to take over or help take over Equestria. Um, Not Cadence, sorry, Flurry Heart would be old enough to help take over Equestria because of the fact that, she's literally born to do that. But you also got, theoretically, Starlight, right? Starlight's there. And then you have Cozy Glow. Um, and then I don't know. I mean, like, I feel like you could probably see the picture I'm painting in that sense, where you have characters you're already familiar with in an aged environment, under new circumstances, and kind of forming the same story of the pillars themselves, of, having to find their place in the world in a sense of who the new generation of elements are, and having a Pegasi so powerful that she's able to turn into herself into a. I think that was also part of the fact that she like absorbed some magic, which is also really interesting because that basically tells us how Cadence became an alicorn. It also gives us some hints on how alicorns are made, artificial alicorns versus natural alicorns. Um, it gives us some idea of, maybe Cozy Glow still has, like, the ability to become some sort of alicorn, which I don't think she would need to, mind you. I think story-wise, having, the next main six all be alicorns is just entirely unnecessary. But, you know, or, yeah, and, see what the, the offspring of the current main six would look like would also be really fun too. Obviously, you wouldn't expect Twilight to have kids because she's an alicorn, and I mean, I guess Cadence did, but it's a bit of a different story, that one. Um, but, like, unless she's born an alicorn. Now that I think about it, um, kind of makes sense why Flurry Heart was born an alicorn. Like, it's never really been done before. Cadence was an artificial alicorn, so there was nothing in her DNA that should have allowed her to have an alicorn baby. But I think storytelling-wise, when you think about who the immortals are after the end of the series, it's actually kind of, you know, like, they only thought they were going to have one more season. They thought, the wedding is in season 2. They thought they were going to have one more wedding and then one more season, and then their contract's over. So it kind of made sense that they wanted to give Twilight another person, like, from a storytelling perspective, to be immortal with, so that she's not just 100% on her own. And same goes with Cadence. If you have the implications that you have a baby that you're going to outlive because you chose to be with a unicorn, is like you couldn't really have a baby in that sense. It kind of leaves a theoretical mark of, like, having to outlive your own child, which I think, especially in a kids show, might be way too heavy-hearted, especially because there are that they know that is unfortunately something that actually happens in real life, and it's probably one of the most painful things I could possibly imagine. So if you found somebody with the implication that, alicorns are immortal, and the alicorn had a Pegasi child, I think maybe part of the reason that entire birth, like, they had to have the wedding for the storytelling, but they probably didn't want it to be a horrible implication of the future. But either way, yeah, I just never thought about that. I think it fixes my problem, so we're gonna stick with that. And of course, like I said, this is one of those things where, why do I start with this? I mentioned that I have a lot of ideas when it comes down to, like, how I want to manage this channel in general. And I may have mentioned that I have, I want to focus on the My Little Pony aspect, but the fact that I have so many, like, ideas about My Little Pony and theories. So why do I start with, the most common one? And I may have mentioned this earlier in the video, because at this point it's a new day, so I don't really know what I've talked about, so this might just be skipped over. But in case I haven't gone into as much depth as I am going now, why do I do this instead of something more unique? The reason I am doing the thing that everybody has done before is because not only does it make, like, a really good starting point if you think about it, it also allows me to save the more complex and interesting ideas for when there's more people who are actually going to see those ideas. Because, like, for example, let's say I start creating an idea I have about the some sort of version. I don't know. I don't want to use anything in particular. Let's say I start, creating an idea about something more interesting than just the next generation, something more unique, and I have 0 people watching it. Well, in the future, I might not have 0 people watching it. I won't say I'm gonna post regularly and get people to follow me on or anything like that. But if that is to happen, then those people are going to, in order to understand the full context, they're going to have to come back all the way to the beginning to my first video, which is absolutely certainly not going to be my best one. It's going to have editing that is bound to be different than what it would be in the future. It will probably be less quality. It maybe have poor microphone quality, poor recording audio quality. Just it's never going like. Have you ever seen anybody's first video that is just like top tier stuff? And I mean, I guess yeah, I have, but I'm certainly not one of those people. This video is extremely long. It's not really catered to a specific audience other than anybody who's willing and wants to listen to me yap. Like it's kind of structured in a way where I'm expecting to get 0 views, and it's not exactly something I think people will enjoy watching particularly. Not because it's not enjoyable, but just simply due to the fact that the attention span you have to watch this, and the passion of ponies to watch this is just it's a bit of a different you know it's just very few people are going to do that, and even if they do that, very few people are going to find my channel specifically about it. And in the future, if people do start finding, let's say I make shorter videos, or, I do start putting out those interesting ideas, and then I start getting, more people interested in my art and what I'm making and what I'm doing with it, at that point in time, the videos of which they would have to watch in the past are not going to be as, they're going to be still part of the same audience. It's going to be catered to the same people. Versus my first video, which isn't really catered to anybody. It's not really trying to be catered to anybody. It's just kind of putting myself out there in a way that I feel comfortable so that I might do more in the future. I'm not really trying to think about, that the YouTube. I mean, I guess in a way I am, but I'm not trying to think about it as a do what everybody else is doing type thing. I'm just thinking about it as this is the type of thing I would like to make, and if I could make it, that would be fun. Um, so when it comes down to, you know, like, I basically, what I'm trying to say is, I want my good ideas to be reserved for a time in which I am better at implementing my ideas. Or when there's people who aren't actually interested in those good ideas, because I don't want them to suffer through a 2 hour long video on a drawing of Fluttershy and Discord that has certainly been done before with better art, and that doesn't have nearly as much yapping going on, right? Uh, so, so yeah, that's why I'm not doing anything too special. I genuinely don't believe this video is gonna get more than, like, at max 10 views. So there's no point, like, trying to pretend that I will. And obviously this idea will still continue to be expanded on, the how I imagined the future to look like. There's how many hundreds of ponies, each one with a story to tell. Each, you can create so many new ones, and there's just so many things that you can do with an idea like this that doesn't need that can be done over a long period of time, without hassling people to look at something that isn't as high quality as what the future may be or may not be. Maybe I just make this one video and disappear off the internet for good. You never know. So, yeah, it's more so just me trying to consider, if I do get popular, then what would my viewers have to endure in order to understand the full story? Because that's something I certainly dislike, is when I find a YouTuber who has a nice story going on, and you have to look back, 10 years. You flip through 10 years worth of videos to finally get the first contextual one that everybody references because they've been long-term viewers for 10 years, and you just don't understand why everybody's referencing this one thing, and then you try to watch the video, and it's like the voice is different and the editing is different, and it's not nearly as entertaining, and there's a reason why you didn't necessarily watch that video 10 years ago. Not only because it wasn't exposed to you, but even if it was, you probably would have clicked away within the first 5 minutes. There's just people. Early videos usually just aren't as good as experienced videos. And I will absolutely fit that trend if I stick to this YouTube crap, because I don't have any experience in video editing or yapping. I haven't met a demographic that enjoys a 2 hour long pony rant, unless if it's something they put on in the background, but that's not exactly gonna, you know, that's not exactly gonna get me a wide followers base or anything like that. Like short form content, at least right now, is absolutely what I should be doing if I wanted to get popular. And I'm doing quite literally the opposite of that. I am making long form content, which is only going to hurt me because YouTube sees the long form content with 0 views, and then why would it promote that, right? So yeah, but yeah, that's why I'm going with this one. I think it's something that I've had in my mind for a long time, so I never really have to worry about forgetting about the idea, or, it's not something that requires much mental expansion outside of just like the main 6, because there are a couple consistencies that I haven't really made up my mind on. But overall, it's just one of those things where I can joyfully make art and experiment with my new platform and see where it leads me, and just kind of chillax. And I've done streaming before. I was never really comfortable with them because I always hated how my voice sounds, and I still I like my voice now than what it was then, because I was trying to stream when I was like maybe 16 years old. And it was a really big barrier for me because I really wanted to talk, but I just really hated how my voice sounded. And so now that I'm a little bit older, I think my voice sounds a little bit better, and it's not nearly as dreadful as what it once was. And I just noticed that uses a different color. The tail does. So I think it's acceptable now. And thus I don't really have that barrier anymore, but I still want to, learn what it feels like to be comfortable talking to nobody, because essentially I am talking to myself. And, maybe I experiment with what it's like for me to talk with my friends. I've never seen a YouTuber, an artist at least, do a type of yap-like video, mainly due to the fact that they are, again, doing voiceovers, but I've never had them really just talk with their friends and just vibe like a streamer does. And I'm not necessarily going to, like, I don't know if people really enjoy watching streams after they're not live anymore because they can't really participate, which is interesting to me because I feel like the majority of people who watch streams only lurk. Like, they only watch it. They don't really actually like participate, but maybe it's just the option of being able to participate that fuels that desire. But whatever it may be, it's certainly something. I'm just going to change all the line color because I don't care about what color the line color is, because it's bound to change again anyways. As long as it's a dark color, it's good enough for me. Um, I think part of the reason I also like the idea of not necessarily having it a live stream, and because I could do that, right? People could just say, well, why don't you live stream if you're doing all this? I get to edit certain things. Like, I get to speed up my art, or I get to edit out me saying, you know, something I already explained before, and and I don't have to interact with anybody. I don't have to constantly check a chat. I think when I was doing streaming, that's something that would often happen, is where I just get so into the art that I just sit there quietly doing my art, and people are like, hi, hello, and then eventually they just, after like 3 messages, they just leave because, well, why wouldn't they, you know? Like, I never responded to them. Um, so eventually they just leave because, yeah. And I even tried to add buttons. Like, I tried to add like notes on my screen that says, "Hey, if you join, you know, make a noise," and then I'll see the chat. And then they never really would do that. So, um, and not to mention, streams are very unrewarding when you have 0 viewers and very long streams. I think the thing that people always tell you is to make like, only make like an hour long or 2 hour long stream, and do it at the exact same time on a very set schedule, and basically to make it become some sort of routine or whatnot. And I don't like that. I don't like the fact that I have to turn it into a job, because I've never streamed for a job. I've always streamed for fun. And that's just not the type of platform that I need to do my ideas on. Versus something like this, where again I can just skip wherever the heck I want to if I'm feeling if I'm feeling it. Um, if I think there's a part of the video where the what I'm talking about doesn't necessarily need to be talked all too much about. Um, or or if I've already talked about it, you know, I can remove repetition. I can skip out the parts where I'm drawing lines and talking very slowly. um, but yeah, I just think I have more freedom that way to make content that isn't just me wasting my voice because I'm talking to myself. I mean, I still am, but it's a bit different. I can choose what other people think I wasted my voice on versus not. I constantly feel like I'm being watched because of the fact that it's recording, versus a stream where if there's no viewers, I don't feel watched, so I'm not going to talk. Wow, this thicking, boldening these lines is making her look a little emo. I mean, now is a perfect example of, you know, where I'm a little bit more quiet because I'm focused. So I can literally just speed this part of the video up, and you are none the wiser. People always tell me if I want to like get into the art world, I need to have a social media presence, which I mean to an extent is actually very true. I feel like there's plenty of artists who don't have a social media presence, who like work for Disney and stuff. Like, it's not like every single one of those animators has you know, they're famous on Instagram or something. Like, they have an Instagram and maybe they post this and that every once in a while, but it's not like they're doing what I'm doing or what the majority of artists do, where they, you know, go through this whole thing about what they're doing, I guess. But I suppose I should take their advice anyways, because when you do have a social media presence, like, admittedly, it does make quite a few things easier, because of the fact that it can basically act as your portfolio. It can act as a form of, like, they can literally, if somebody's wanting to hire you, they can literally see what you're about and what your skills are like without even having to interview you. And, you know, they can see your personality and they can see your work process, and there's a lot of benefits to having yourself exposed that way. But I think there's also a lot of drawbacks, because, you know, they can judge, oh, well, they have a tendency to say the word shit, and I don't want that in, you know, I don't think that's an appropriate work environment, and so they might not just hire you for that one thing, right? So I feel like it can also easily backfire on you. Or if you don't have any social media presence, it's the kind of the same idea, where it's like, well, why don't they have social media? You know, are they trying to hide something? Are they worried that are they not social? And then you explain to them, oh, well, I just hate social media because I think it's brain rot. And then they're like, oh, it's one of those people. And, you know, like, there's just, it allows for more bias to be made about you. But I think those biases are going to be made even without you. And considering I'm not exactly trying to get into Disney, I think it's okay if I say the word shit. And I think if Disney asked me to work for them, because they saw my videos, despite the fact that I said the word shit, then I think that just goes to prove that it doesn't really matter if you say the word shit. And I guess that would mean I'm just that good of an artist, and at that point I would probably apply to whatever the heck I wanted to actually work for, because the way Disney has been treating their animators is not something I wish to be a part of. Disney used to be a passion project, and now it's a money grab. So I don't really necessarily want to work for there. And this, I actually had a way to work freely, you know? Like, I don't want my stuff to be censored because one of my characters kisses another character or something, you know? Oh, we're gonna cancel your show because because your characters were in love. So, I mean, I don't really make anything LGBT, but it's just, yeah, it's its own conversation, not the time or place for that. So now, if I were to work for something like Glitch Animation, I'm just saying, I think they only do like 3D artists though. I want to do 2D art. So I guess maybe it's not the best. Yes, that's what I was gonna ask. I was gonna ask, if you're still listening at this point in time, what are your thoughts on, what is their name? Fluttercord? Like, the Discord Fluttershy ship. I guess it's kind of controversial, at least back in the day it was. I don't really know anything about modern Discord because people just, well, don't really care anymore, you know? Like, I don't think the fandom is as terrible as it used to be, but I never actually had a problem with shipping these two. It always comes down to this morally shy area where it's hard to tell if you know, when you deal with an immortal and a non-mortal in a non-platonic relationship. Wow, look at my vocabulary. I guess it's always a moral gray area, because it's like, one part is like, well, yeah, you are shipping two characters together, and one of them's been alive for literally all of existence, and the other one has been alive for 20 years, you know? Like, what age mentally are you old enough to be with an immortal? Because even if you also become immortal, you're still like millenniums younger. It's always the best example is always the vampire example. You know, like where the vampire goes after, you know, he romantically pursues some high schooler, and then the high schooler becomes a vampire, and that exists in too many books and stuff. But I feel like the fact that it still exists in so many books, and those fandoms of those tropes are still so alive, I bet it's not as mortally inappropriate as we imagine it to be. Like, if they're over 18 years old. I guess that's what people say. But I think personally, it depends on the immortal. Oh, I accidentally just made an ubu there. How cute. Embrace it. If the immortal, like, it's kind of the same logic as humans in general. Like, if you're, you know, 28 years old, 30 years old, and you're in a relationship with somebody 40 or 50 years old, most people don't really necessarily see that as a bad thing, because once you get close to 30 years old, people just like don't care about what age you're dating anymore, unless if you're dating somebody like maybe 80 to 100 years old, in which case everybody thinks you're just there for the moolah. But even then, most people will see it as some sort of disgust, and they don't really see it as a crime. Like, they don't see it as criminal, because they recognize both parties as consensual adults. So even if you think one of them is malicious to, you know, the older one's death, or vice versa, the older one is malicious towards the other one's youth, it's usually seen as, well, they should be old enough and smart enough by now, right? So I'm eating a cookie. When it comes down to the immortal conversation, that's when things start to change a little bit. Is an immortal not allowed to feel love or be in a relationship with somebody just because of the fact that they are, you know, pretty much immortal? Does it depend on the universe, you know? If you only have one immortal in the universe and you are simply alone and immortal, are you not entitled to love? Are you expected to shut yourself down and just be lonely your entire life? Are you no longer allowed to seek human connection and emotions? I think that's also, you know, you have to think about it from the immortal's perspective too. Is it, if there's no other immortals and there's only one immortal, is that immortal not allowed to feel emotions platonically or romantically or even friendship wise? Are you just not allowed to be friends with anybody because you're immortal? Because you're just taking advantage of them for your own emotional, you know, security or something? Like, it's a tough question. But when it comes down to my personal opinion on it, I think it kind of follows the same logic as like the 30-year-old and the 80-year-old conversation, where it's not exactly something I think as I view it as slightly repulsive, but at the same time, if they're both consensual adults and they're not actively trying to abuse each other, where's the harm in it, right? Like, the most common argument is, well, somebody who's immortal has been around so long that they know how to manipulate the other person, and that results to a bad relationship, a toxic relationship. Yeah, but that also happens even when you're not immortal, even when there isn't any age gap. Toxic relationships exist regardless, and assuming somebody is going to be toxic simply because they desire human connection isn't necessarily the best opinion to have on life, in my opinion. Like, I think if you just assume that anybody older than you is actively trying to hurt you, what are you going to assume when you yourself are older and you just desire human connection? You're now going to be placed in that person's shoes that you were so judgmental of before. Um, so what then, right? Um, And I think if I was in, my grandma's shoes and I was so old and I just wanted friends, I wouldn't really care if I was friends with a 20-year-old or an 80-year-old, As long as somebody was being my friend and showing me kindness, then I would be happy with them being my friend. Uh, Romantically and platonically, I don't think I would be caring about anybody other than my significant other, regardless if they had passed or not. And that's kind of what Discord is implied to be in Generation 5. He doesn't care about anybody other than Discord. He's no longer, or other than Fluttershy, he's no longer interested in having any sort of relationship with anything if it's not with her. Um, so I think he, at least wise, gets the pass of toxicity. He's a very jealous guy, but he's not, as far as I can see, abusive. Um, and I think he genuinely cares very deeply and soulfully about Fluttershy, which is why I actually like the idea of them being in a bit of a relationship, and I like the idea of them potentially even having a child. I don't really know how cross-species things work in My Little Pony, but I feel like instead of going through the whole uncomfortable conversation of like how that would even work, I think it's funnier to believe that Fluttershy would say I desire a child and Discord would literally just like snap and then they would have a child. like like I think it's I think it's like he is the embodiment of Discord. I feel like he would just literally just snap and then he wouldn't understand the like like he wouldn't understand what Fluttershy means if she said, "Oh, I would like to have a child." He'd just be like, "Okay, I can make one." Snap, and then here's your child, and it looks like both of them combined, and it's like an abomination. And Fluttershy is taken aback for a moment, and she's like, "Well, I didn't mean like now, like in 9 months." So, bro, just deletes the child and she's like, no, what did you do that for? Like, why did you don't, no, you can't just delete a child. Like, and then he would be like, I don't understand what you want, Fluttershy. And then Fluttershy would be like, um listen, Discord, maybe that's for the better. I'll just re-ask you in 9 months. Or maybe she would kindly explain to him what she meant, and Discord would be like horrified. You think you want to do that with me? Like, but Fluttershy, I am not a pony. I cannot do that. You'd be like, I like my idea better. And Fluttershy would be like, yes, I like your idea better too. Like, I think it would be a very chaotic conversation if if they were to if they were to do that. I don't think it would just be like I don't think it would be anything outside of that. Maybe for other characters it's a bit different, but this was between the immortal and the kindness, the embodiment of kindness, and their relationship. I think, I think it would it would go something like that. Um, yeah, it's just which is probably what I will end up reflecting later as well. I will probably, assuming I draw the next generation of Discord and Fluttershy's child, it'll probably be that type of thing where Discord just snap, there you go, there's your child, and then he's like, oh, oh, here's a better idea. He snaps like 8 different children, and each one has different characteristics, and he's like, so which one do you want? Like one of them is like it's on a scale of like pony to Draconicus, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how Draconicus do you want your pony to be? Like it's a pony, like there's one of the babies is like has like one bat wing and one Fluttershy wing, and that's it. Like it's just like it's literally just Fluttershy but with one bat wing. And on the other end it's literally just Discord but pink and yellow, It's just a baby Discord, but 100% pink and yellow. And he'd be like, which one do you want? And Fluttershy would be like, what the fuck? I guess I guess she just isn't really surprised by him anymore, so maybe she would be like, Discord? That's not how that works. You know? I don't know. I think it's really funny to imagine the baby talk if they were to have a child, the fucking baby talk. Okay, my break is over. For you, it's been like 2 seconds, but for me, it's been about an hour. So I'm back, and I would like to just tell a little story. I, whilst I was eating my breakfast, lunch, and dinner all in one because I'm unhealthy and I eat one meal a day sometimes, I kind of was thinking about something when I was a kid. I was bullied a lot, but especially by my brothers. And one of the things, for whatever reason, that they decided to bully me a lot about is my Chinese zodiac. If you know anything about the Chinese zodiac, you know that it has a monkey in it. My older brother's a dragon, I'm a monkey, my little brother's a dog, and my little sister is an ox. It's based off what year you were born. So I was born 2004, so I am a monkey. And for whatever reason, this was something that was really important to, especially my older brother, when he would attempt to bully me over my Chinese zodiac sign or symbol or animal, whatever you want to call it. And he would always say it's like the worst one, like like at least you're not a monkey, like that's what he would say to my little brother who was a dog, or to any of his friends. It was always, at least you're not a monkey, monkeys are the worst. Those are the worst possible ones. And if I tried to say or be happy that I was a monkey, I loved climbing trees and, trying things out and just being overall creative, which is what the monkey is depicted as in the world of uh, of the zodiacs. Then he would be like upset with that in a way. I know, sounds weird, but he would basically be like, yeah, well, that's not really a good thing, or that's the best thing about them. Like, and he would say it in a bad way. So, for example, if I was happy that I climbed trees, he would be like, yeah, well, that's only the best thing about them. There's not really, they don't have any redeeming qualities other than this one thing. And if you're happy over this one thing, there's nothing to be happy over, right? If you have one slice of the pie, then don't be happy over the one slice of the pie, because everybody else got multiple slices of the pie. And so I always not only found that a little bit weird, but it really always made me feel bad as a kid, because especially at times I really hated the fact that I was a monkey because of him, um, and you know, and I guess when I ask him why monkeys are the worst, he would be like, yeah, well, they throw poop at each other. And keep in mind, we're kids. It's not like my brother was like perfect. Nobody's perfect. But especially when it came down to our relationship as siblings, he really hated monkeys, I guess. um, but either way, he would just say they throw poop at each other, they're gross, they're dumb, anything you could possibly imagine. And then he would say that I'm also all of those things, that I would throw poop at each other or something, because that makes sense. So I don't know what monkey hurt him, but it hurt him bad. Um, and I was kind of thinking about that while I was eating my food. I realize this is probably something people have realized at much earlier time than me, but I'm kind of just now realizing it, at least wise in words. I kind of had an idea of it before, but not the same way. Um, excuse me. I realized that if somebody wants to bully you over something, regardless if it's, being a monkey in the Chinese zodiac or how long or short your hair is, the person of whom wishes to bully you is going to make sure you are bullied. They don't really care what they're bullying you over. They just need you to feel bullied. And the way I mean that is, I was thinking about it. It's like the being a monkey wasn't the bad thing. Like his goal was to make me feel bad ultimately at the end of the day. And he achieved that because he took something that I thought was cool and he turned that into a bad thing. Because being a monkey isn't cool. It's not a good thing. You shouldn't be happy with that, basically. Um, and and so it was never about the monkey. It was never like I always thought to myself, I wish I wasn't born a monkey. I wish I was born 1 year later so I could be the whatever it was, the ox, or not the ox. My sister's an ox. The rat or something, right? And my neighbor also had a Chinese zodiac uh, calendar, so it had like all the birthday months and stuff. Um, and I always thought to myself how much I wish to be something something other than a monkey. Um, but I realize again, like I said, it was never about being a monkey. His goal, like being a monkey, wasn't the problem. The problem. How do I want to say that? I mean is when somebody wants to bully you, like it's not because you're a monkey. Like it didn't matter that I was a monkey. It's not because of the monkey that I was bullied in this way. It's because like it wasn't the monkey's fault. It was the fact that he wanted to bully me, and it didn't matter if I was a monkey or a rat or an ox or a dog. It didn't matter what it was because it was never about the monkey. And that can be translated into so many different things. It wasn't about the monkey. It was about the fact that he was trying to make me feel bad. So it could have been anything. It did not matter. It was not about the monkey. And and I think that's one of those lessons in life that I never really understood very easily. The fact that it's not about the monkey. It, like the monkey isn't a bad thing. Being the monkey is not the bad part of it. It's the bad part is the monkey became a bad thing because that's what he wanted it to be. He wanted the monkey to be a bad thing because it was what I was. I was the monkey. But, and that was it, you know? Like, the whole problem with the monkey was that I was the monkey. And that can be translated to literally any aspect of bullying. If somebody bullies you about how short your hair is, it doesn't matter. It's not about the short hair. They're not bullying you because of your short hair. They're bullying you because it's a trait that you have displayed, or that you know you have, or even a choice that you chose to make. It's something that you did that they are going to use to make you feel bad. You know, if you have long hair, well, it's not about your long hair. They don't care about your long hair. They don't hate your long hair. They are just actively trying to make you feel bad, and they're going to use whatever tools at their disposal that they have in order to make you feel that way. Like I said, I'm sure that's a lesson that most people already understood by now. And it's not that I don't understand that lesson beforehand or anything, but it's more so the fact that it's something that I often forget. You know, when people are mean to me, or they try to um, say something about me, I often forget it's not about what they're saying, because that's never what it was about. It's about the fact that they just want me to feel bad. And I can choose to respond with offense, and I can choose to be offended, and you know, I can think that it's a bad thing of whatever of which they are saying to me, um, and I can live my life believing that a monkey is the bad thing, or I can recognize the fact that it was never about the monkey, and it's about the fact that he's just trying to make me feel bad. And I feel like that's how you can recognize a bully from the majority of other people, because a bully, it doesn't matter what they're saying to you, they're just going to say it to you. Somebody who genuinely is trying to critique you, they're not going to talk about, you know, the problem is actually the monkey. You know, they're going to say, oh no, you know, I know that this is just, like, they're not going to be friendly about it. They're not going to make you feel bad about being a monkey. And that's where the biggest difference in a bully versus somebody who's genuinely trying to help lies. Is it about the monkey, or is it about something else? You know, are they just trying to bully you, or is it about the monkey? Because if it's about the monkey, if it's not about the monkey, then they're just saying what they think will help. Um, but yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't know. I was just kind of thinking about it, just thinking about, you know, what exactly I experienced as a kid, and what makes me upset versus what doesn't. And I mean, even to this day, I think monkeys are like, they're not exactly creatures I like or care for, because I was reinforced so deeply that they're not worth um, such beliefs of of desire. But especially with, you know, after watching One Piece, I think monkeys can be pretty cool. I mean, the dude's name is literally Monkey, right? Monkey D. Luffy. Um, but yeah, I just, you know, don't try to let other people get you down too hard. Um, it's most times not about the monkey. So if somebody insults you, you know, oh, you're so stupid, it's likely not about the fact that you're stupid, because I've met stupid people. Like, genuinely, they are just stupid. And nobody cares that they're stupid, you know? Like, nobody cares that they are, in every medical sense, retarded. They don't care that, you know, they have this inability to comprehend certain things or conversations. And nobody cares that they're stupid, because why would they? It's not something that they can control, and it's doesn't make them any less of a person. And in fact, when they do say things that they don't understand or that they're talking about, you know, if they say something offensive, or if they say something unforgiving, People are just like, well, you know, they just don't understand. You know, they just lack a little bit in the IQ department, and we can try to explain it, but overall, it's just, you know, it's not their fault that they don't get it. And if somebody else tries to blame them, then the other person will literally come in and say, well, you know, you don't know this about them, but you know, they are medically stupid. And you know, I try not to use the retarded word, even though that is the word that they are supposed to use because it's a medical word. But I'm not sure if, you know, YouTube agrees with my usage of the medical term that of which they have. But either way, I just, people don't care that they're stupid. So if somebody calls you stupid, they don't care that you're stupid, because if you genuinely were stupid, you wouldn't care either, you know? You wouldn't care if you're stupid if you were genuinely stupid, because genuinely stupid people not only lack the intelligence to recognize their lack of intelligence, you know, even if they're self-aware of their medical prowess, it doesn't mean that they care. You know, why do they care about being smart? It doesn't really make any difference to them as far as they're concerned. So there's literally no reason for them to care. It's only people who are trying to harm you or attack you or make you feel bad that are going to use those traits against you to make you, well, feel bad. That's literally the entire point, is to make you feel bad. And even if you are stupid and somebody's making fun of you for being stupid, they don't care that you're stupid. Like, I thought, like in the most literal sense, they do not care. Because if they, like they just don't care. They're just trying to hurt your feelings. And yeah, like I said, I bet you that's a lesson that majority of people learned long before me, but it's nothing I've really articulated in my own mind before because of the fact that it just never really stuck to me that way. I've never really thought about it in that sense because, well, yeah, just because I suppose. Though I'm sure there's going to be a timestamp of when the art is complete. So hi, welcome back if you ended up skipping to the end of it. My yapping is done. My yapping is finished. My art is almost finished, which just means outro. I don't really know how to do an outro. I don't really know. Yeah. Enjoy the rest of the art, I suppose. Okay. So, I suppose my art... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Outro 2.0. I still got the second part of the outro to go through. um, yeah, so I guess I hope you enjoyed the adventure. Um, if if you liked it, let me know. Or if you even watched all of it, let me know. If you skipped it, let me know. If you watched certain checkpoints, let me know. Just honestly, just basically leave me a review. Let me know what you would like to see more of and what you want me to not yap so much about. Or if you just like the fact that this was something you could put in the background and listen to and just vibe to until the end. I guess I won't really... I mean, I guess it'll be a while before I actually not only post this, but before I post again. Unless people just, you know, beg me to, you know, they're just you know, suddenly I gain 50 million followers and everybody wants a piece of me, then I guess I would post sooner, but I increasingly doubt that. The last part of Discord we got going on here is really just these three parts. I always forget just how many individual parts there are of Discord, so that's kind of why my outro ended up starting a little early. But besides the point, yeah, I have no idea how to edit a video, so I guess I'm going to attempt to do that now. I guess I'm supposed to watch my own video, which I'm not so sure about that one. So I'll probably have a poor editing because I probably won't really review this all too much. Outside of the parts that I know have commentary on them and the parts that I'm probably gonna edit it in blocks in a way. And because of that, I'm not going to pay all too much attention to exactly what I'm saying. So, because I don't think I could withstand that long. Can't lie. I would go crazy listening to my voice for as much footage as there is. You know, honestly, how do people even do that? Like, normal YouTubers who don't hire an editor just sit there listening to their own voice. Like, insanity, isn't it? But that's probably going to end up being me, even if I say I don't want to, because somebody got to go through the footage. I mean, I could upload it raw, but I did say that's not exactly what I want. I want it to be long form content, but still edited and all that good stuff. So there you have it. Here's my version of Gen 5, actually. Gen 5 Fluttershy in Discord. And hopefully you find that kind of funny. If you skipped everything in between, you will probably see this and think, how on earth is that Gen 5 Fluttershy and Discord, and why are they in Gen 5? So maybe that'll entice you to watch the rest of the video. No, I'm joking. Don't do that if you don't want to. But yes, here it is. I'm probably going to have it pop up on the screen as a PNG file, so it really zooms in. You know, maybe have some cool editing effects, like boom. You know, like some people are just not people, but some explosions or something, right? It's not perfect, but that's the goal of this channel, is to make not perfect art. If you want to see my perfect art, then, well, I don't really exist on social media, so I guess I'll leave a Discord in the I'll leave a Discord in the video. Yeah, if you want to see my art, there's not really anywhere to see it, so have fun. But yeah, I should probably do something about that, shouldn't I? Maybe I'll make a Discord. I don't know. There's either going to be a Discord or there's not, and you're going to have to wait a year for a Discord, or not. So here it is, Gen 5 Discord and Fluttershy. I hope you enjoyed, and see you next time. I'm going to go figure out how to edit videos.